First of our mission statement. The Delaware Art Museum connects people to art, offering an inclusive and essential community resource that, through its collections, exhibitions, and programs, generates creative energy that sustains, enriches, empowers, and inspires. Now, I know that's a lot, and you have to kind of take it apart to kind of figure out what it means, but basically where our whole emphasis right now, and what we've been working on at least for the last year or so, is trying to engage more and more of our community into the museum. We've had surveys that have basically said that people are intimidated by a museum setting. We're not welcoming enough. We're not engaging enough. So in the past year or so, you may have seen our programming ratcheted up. You may have seen us having all kinds of diverse programs, educational programs, and that's the whole point. Of course, we want to showcase our art. That's the most important thing. But we want to make this a hub. We want to make it a welcoming, inviting environment. Our museum timeline, we're going to start with the history. And you each have a timeline in your folder. I think it's on the right side. And I'm not going to go under each year, but just to give you a little history. 1911, Howard Pyle was traveling to Italy and he died. And this was kind of the start of everything. So his friends in 1912, which included the Bancrofts, Sam Bancroft, who owned Bancroft Mills, the DuPonts, Frank Schoonover, his student, and Stanley Arthur, joined together to form the Wilmington Society of Fine Arts. Now, in 1923, the society was housed in the Wilmington Institute Free Library building at 10th and Market Street. In 1935, Sam Bancroft, who owned Bancroft Mills, decided to donate land. He donated 11 acres, and he 30 paintings, including his Pre-Raphaelites and other American art. And he said to the Fine Arts Society, if you can come up with the money, this is Sam, if you can come up with some money and meet me halfway, you can have 11 acres to build the library. Well, the society and residents of Wilmington raised $350,000. This was in 1935, so. And the biggest reason for starting this whole, the museum, was to house the Howard Pyles and then again the Sam Bancroft's Pre-Raphaelites. So construction began. And then, when the construction was completed in 1938, the original Delaware Arts Center, how many people knew that we were originally called the Delaware Arts Center building, which was designed by Samuel Holmesy and G. Morris Whiteside, open to the public. And again, it was devoted to the Pre-Raffs and Howard Pyle. So in 1940, the Society received two significant additions to the museum. One was The Mermaid by Howard Pyle, and the other was 400 etchings and other prints. So that was a significant contribution to the museum. In 1943, the Wilmington Academy of Arts joins with the Delaware Arts Center, and they established the Arts Center's first educational programs. And in 1954, nearly 500 students passed through the doors for studio art classes that year. Now, in 1954 and 55, the education wing was built with a large gift by W. Fletcher Brown. 1958, the Friends of Art is founded, and collectors start recognizing that the Delaware Arts Center is a place that is worthy of valuable pieces of art. So then we got Lukes and Hopper and Akins. In 1959, the museum introduces the Museum Guide Program, formerly known as the docent program. Our docents have changed the name, or the museum has changed the docent's name to Museum Guide. Again, one of our initiatives in trying to make the museum more friendly. People are intimidated by the word docent. At least some believe that. I have a mixed feeling about that, but anyway. So in 1959, our docent program began. 1960, Helen Forrest Sloan came to the museum for a special exhibit of the 5th anniversary of the Independent Artist, and she was really impressed by the museum, so she started to house John Sloan's pieces here at the Delaware Art Center, although at that time we did not get all of his pieces. We got more and more as she became more familiar with the museum. 1964, Andrew Wyeth collection is donated by Mr. and Mrs. William Phelps. 1970, the Delaware Art Center is now renamed the Delaware Art Museum. And you have all this, as I said, in your timeline, plus you have a 3 or 4 page history on the right side of your folder, if you care to read that. So, we really don't have anything significant between 1970, when we became the Delaware Art Museum, to 2002, and that was the first capital campaign to raise money for the renovations and additions that started in 2005. 2005, or just prior to 2005, but the year 2005, the museum was housed down at the riverfront in the Chase Center, or whatever it was called at the time. I'm not sure what it was called. For about a year while the museum was renovated. And in that year, we said that the education wing was built previously. But in this year, the wing on the other side where the cafe, the Gallery 10, the gift shop, that wing was added. So in 2008, more collections, contemporary art collectors, Herbert and Dorothy Vogel gave 50 works of minimal.
I thought their name was familiar.
Yes, and conceptual art to the museum. And in 2009, that's when the museum acquired the Alfred Appel Jr. collection of works. And the scholarship that we award to interns is called the Appel Scholarship. 2000, now we're up to 2017, DuPont donated significant works of art. This was from the DuPont Hotel. And those pieces right now, we have gotten a grant for those, and they are being conserved. And just a funny note, we were talking about those, and our head curator, Heather Campbell Coyle, was saying, you know, obviously they had to be conserved because some of them without glass were in the restaurant. She said there was egg and whatever on the picture. You know, I mean, you're in a restaurant, you can imagine anything, you know. So they are in the process of being conserved so they can be part of the museum's collection. Well, they're part of the collection, but they can be installed. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about the facilities. Galleries are generally open on days that we're open. But on Tuesdays when we're closed, by appointment, a school may come and have a tour. But these are our general hours. And you all know about the museum store, and just a little hint, members this week, I think it's members get 30% off. Or is it 20? I'm sorry. 20. It's usually 10, and it's 20, right. And again, the Thronson Cafe, now you do know it's under the management of Toscana, and you need to look, I don't have them listed, but their hours do not always coincide with the hours the museum is open. They may close a half hour earlier. The elevators, we have 2 elevators. We have a public elevator that is across from the cafe, holds about 5 or 6 people or 2 wheelchairs. And then, I don't know if you're aware, we have the freight elevator next to Gallery 10. We often have a situation where we have individuals in wheelchairs or strollers, and it's difficult to get down to Gallery 10 with the 8 or 9 steps. So that elevator is very convenient. and it's open, the public can use it. And also it's good if you have a large group, a tour, you can fit 20 people in there. You cannot get down to the lower level, that is only by card access. All right, we have restrooms on all 3 floors, and these are where they're located. So we have one in Orientation Hall. I didn't know if you knew that's what that's called, that hallway going from Fusco, Grand Hall, down to just beyond the elevator. That's called Orientation Hall because we have those monitors, and they will show about exhibits, or they may show about the store. Down on the lower level, if you go down the steps or down the elevator, if you go to the left, I think the left, you'll see a women's and a men's restroom, and they're the largest actually. They probably have 7 stalls, at least the women's. I can't speak to the men's. On the second floor, we have individuals, so it's just one locked room for men and women on the second floor, and then the studio has an restroom. And just sort of housekeeping, there is a restroom out of this room to the right on this level near Thronson. We use this room for a variety of events. Companies have breakfast meetings here, lunch meetings here, so people rent out quite a few of our spaces. Parking's available in the back lot. We have lot A through D, I believe. Staff is not encouraged, but it's required to use the second lot. Volunteers are encouraged to use the second lot, but I don't know that we really enforce it. You may park on the front of Kentmere, although that is not surveyed by the security. There are surveillance cameras in the back parking lots. Okay. The Copeland Sculpture Garden, again, I would suggest you pick up this. Did I grab one? Yes. And this is a revised flyer that has the map and where everything is labeled. There's a legend or a key to where each sculpture is labeled. I would say in the past 18 months, we probably have gotten 3 or 4 additional sculptures. Okay. And again, if you're a volunteer, you should never feel uncomfortable asking someone, please step away from the art, or please don't touch the art. Our policy here is if you see something, say something, and that's staff, volunteers, museum guides, security, anyone. And in the sculpture garden, many times, I don't think visitors realize that the Crying Giant is not a jungle gym, because kids hang on the arms, they sit on the feet. It's a piece of art. And now it's stanchioned, but we've had many incidences with some of the sculptures, and it's really important, again, if you see something. And it's just a gentle reminder. The Copeland Sculpture Garden is named after philanthropists Garrett and Tatiana Copeland. They are big benefactors of our museum. And the Labyrinth, and many of you have been out to the Labyrinth, which was originally a reservoir. It was then refashioned into a labyrinth. And I did not know this when I came, or when I first heard of the Labyrinth. It's not a maze, it's a reflection space where you can sit and kind of reflect. And we do have an equinox and solstice labyrinth walks. The labyrinth is maintained by volunteers. And I don't know if any of you know Carol Maurer, who works in the gift shop. She was the one that back in the 1970-something corralled all the volunteers to get that labyrinth made with the stones. And so we do have events out there. We've had wedding ceremonies out there. We've had dance recitals out there, so it will hold 50. And the Helen Forrest Sloan Library is in the lower level. Now, the library is not open to the public, but can be or by appointment. So we have many fine arts students, University of Delaware, whatever. Students make appointments to come because we not only have, we have, of course, art history books, but we not only have those, we have a great deal of archives, which might be letters from John Sloan to his wife. We have letters from Dante Gabriel Rossetti. So, we have letters, we might have tools from some of the artists. Rachel DiLaterio, who is the librarian and just recently became an archivist, is amazing. She's wonderful. And, if you ever needed or wanted something and to research something, just, give her a call and she'll make an appointment. Rachel DiLaterio. Now, in your folder, I think you might have, trying to think if there's an organizational chart. Okay. And that's all I have to, I put that in there because some people ask me, well, who's where and what? Development is my department. So volunteer coordination, volunteer management comes under the Department of Development and External Affairs. We also changed our name. It used to be Marketing and Development, but we've changed our name. So anyway, just so you know who does what in the museum. All right, now we're coming to the galleries and the art. If you just want to make notes, 1, 2, and 3 are the portrait galleries and our oldest, earliest American art. We are a predominantly American art museum. The only thing that we have in our museum that is not American is our Pre-Raphaelite collection, which is British and beautiful. Pre-Raphaelite, there was a group of artists in there like 19 and 20 years old, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Howard Hunt, Millay, I'm trying to think of some more, but anyway, who in the mid 1800s, I would say, decided that they were rebelling against the art of the day. They wanted to, they wanted something that was more raw, that was more realistic, which reflected what was going on in that day. So they modeled their art after the period that preceded Raphael in Europe. So that's why it's the Pre-Raphaelite art. When I first saw it, it looked very Italian to me. And I know we're not even at those galleries, but since we're talking about what kind of art we have, that's one of our largest collections. And if you did not know that we have the largest collection of Pre-Raphaelite art in the United States, outside of London. All right, so that's what we are. We're American. We're also illustrative, and you'll see many of these areas. All right, so then in galleries 4, 5, and 6, we have Howard Pyle. Gallery 7 are more illustration. Harper's Magazine, some of the earlier magazines. Then we get to 8, the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Again, beautiful, beautiful art. The Pre-Raphaelites had this thing for redheads, which were called the stunners. And many of their, Elizabeth Siddall and my mind right now, I can't remember, Fanny, who can help me? Who can? Anyway, thank you, Fanny Cormore, thank you. So anyway, they loved redheads, and they'd go down to the Boweries in London and go into, I think, on the streets. And actually, he found Elizabeth Siddall in a hat shop. But anyway, Fanny, I think, was a barmaid or something. But anyway, so they really were excited about these women as models. So you'll see a lot of their painting, many of their paintings. And again, my knowledge is limited. I'm not a guide, but just to give you basic, you don't need to know everything about everything, but I'm sharing what I can. Okay. Galleries 11 and 12 on the second floor are regional artist galleries. That's on the other side. And that changes. And they're actually called the Outlook Galleries. Gallery 13 is illustration, but if you go through 13 to 14, they're the Howard Pyle murals. And they were actually cut out of Howard Pyle's walls when he lived, they believe, on Adams Street in Wilmington. When the curators gave the staff a tour, there was a kind of a joke made that felt that this was meant to be Howard Pyle's wife's insurance policy. So they were cut out of the walls. They were taken and housed in the Wilmington Library for a period of time. And then we eventually acquired them. And I'm sorry I don't have that date. But I can tell you in 2015, because it was the fall of the year that I started, they were installed in 14 after much conservation. They had paint taken off of them, because you can imagine if they're on someone's drawing room walls, they're going to have oils and all kinds of, they're going to need to be cleaned. In Gallery 15, we have John Sloan in the Ashcan School.
Marie,
Yes.
is Howard Pyle's house still there?
No. They actually demolished it. They brought through the Delaware Avenue ramp from 95. So do you know where that liquor store is on Adams Street? That's where I was told that they believed he once lived. But I understand there's a studio, and I want to go to it, but I'm not sure. And I think it's in Wilmington. Gallery 16, more contemporary. As you go up to the second floor of the museum and proceed down to the right, toward the right, 15, 16, 17, you're going to see things that are more contemporary, starting in the late 1900s and the early 2000s. But in 15, it's John Sloan in the Ashcan School. So that would be Henry, Luke's, Sloan. Some of Helen Farr Sloan's pieces are there. So then we're up to Gallery 16, which we have right now, I believe, unless they've changed them on me, 2 Andrew Wyeth and an N.C. Wyeth. We do own more of the Wyeths, but not. Things get traded out, and I didn't know if you knew this, but if it's paint on paper or color on paper, watercolor on paper, it has to get changed out every 3 to 6 months due to the fact that it cannot be installed and be exposed to the light and the temperatures for longer than that period. And then we're at Gallery 17, which is our most contemporary. And if we go into 17, you'll see a variety of sculptures. Tunnels in there. Riot used to be in there, but Riot's been moved. But there are the Queen's Closet. So there are a variety of sculptures in 17. Our guest standards. We have an acronym. So greet, make eye contact and smile, understand, listen to guest needs. If someone has a problem, just listen. You can defer it to someone else. Educate, engage the guest with questions if you feel comfortable with that. Satisfy, provide a world-class experience. Just try and, make sure that the visitors. And thank is thank each and every guest. All right, now we're in our standards and policies. I'm going to go through these real quick. Volunteers, to stop at the security desk, sign in. If you need to go anywhere else other than the main museum, you may need a tag, which looks something like this. Yours will be a contract badge, not a tag. It will get you access into limited areas, but it will get you to the administration offices if you need to do office support. If you do get a badge, they will ask you for your driver's license to hold. Mainly, so that you remember to give your badge back, which even staff if we go to lunch, we return our badges. We do not take them out, and a couple times I've had to drive back with mine, but thank goodness I live 5 blocks away, right? So going forward, you'll need to wear it for an event if you forget it or don't have it. Because we were running out of those gold ones that said volunteer, I'm down to 6 of them, and we pay for those. Pardon me? I guess, and I had that sign-in system. But if you're doing office support, of course, you don't need to wear the badges. Dress and sense. These are just policies that we have. I mean, use your judgment. And usually on my email, I will put, casual or handling objects. We sort of went through this. If you see visitors standing too close or backing up. The problem with backing up to the art, you don't realize how close you are. So we have a standard rule of 18 inches. And visitors shouldn't lean on walls. Okay. There are pieces of furniture in the galleries that you may sit on, and it will say, please sit, and they're usually in the center of the room. There are pieces that you cannot touch because they're very old and valuable. Okay. If you have a question and you don't know the answer, refer that person to a staff member or security guard. And if for some reason you don't have that ability or can't get to one, or just take their name or ask them to write down their name, and then you can give it to a staff person. If you know the answer, by all means. And after this training, you're going to know all the answers. So, right. Emergency procedures. We have a whole procedure and policy. We do not expect anyone that's not a staff member to really have to read through those guidelines or have to, perform CPR, for example. But get a security guard or a staff person. We had someone faint at an event last summer. And, I ran over to the person, but Stuart was there just as quickly, so. Photography in the galleries is allowed as long as it is our art. Sometimes in the special galleries, it's not permitted because we don't own it, and there are certain copyright issues. No flash anytime. Now, if you're not sure, in the galleries that we cannot use photography, there usually is a sign, just so tell the visitor or check if there's a sign. If there's not a sign, it's ours. And even in the special exhibit, the Sloan exhibit, we own every piece of art in that exhibit. So you can take pictures of that. Inclement weather, this is the number, and I believe you have that on one of the pages. If not, if you want to copy down that number. If you're not sure, you can't get a hold of me. Usually if it's an issue where it's inclement weather, I will try to give you my cell number. I've given my cell number out so many times. It's fine. Because you're not going to get me at my desk. People call me and they'll say, like I had 8 performers here last week for Winter Arts. Marie, I called you at your desk. They finally emailed me. I was in the museum for 2 straight days till 8 o'clock at night on Friday. And so I will try to do that more and more. Or call the front desk. If you need to get me, because if I'm at the event, that's usually where, if it's an event, I'm usually there if I'm here that day. Our director of operations will try to put it on the website, but it just depends on the circumstances. He might be up to his neck in shoveling. Now here are the types of volunteer opportunities, and most of you have done probably all of these. We have preview events. And at the preview events, we have greeters, guides, clickers, or counters with the counter. We might have floaters. We might have someone sitting at a table, handing out raffle tickets, taking business cards in a fishbowl. Could be anything. Family fun events usually mean arts and crafts. Sunday art studio events. That's out in the art studio every second Sunday of the month. And usually I need people to assist an instructor, so you're not instructing, but assist an instructor in facilitating an art activity with families. You should never have to supervise children. It should be a family situation. Office support, many of you have done that. Mailings, filings, research, scanning documents, digitizing documents. Special projects, sometimes we have people doing, I don't know, right now we have someone working in the curator's office, and I think they are working with documents. So special projects are usually short-term. Distribution of flyers, when we have a big event, I had 3 or 4 people distributing flyers for the Winter Arts Fest. We don't do that for every event, but like the Summer Music Festival or the Winter Arts Fest.